Assam alaikum, everyone. My name is Henna Zuberi, and I'm the director for the DC operations of Justice for All. We're thankful for all of you for your presence. I will be moderating the panel and would like to go over some housekeeping rules. Number one, we would like all of you to post any and all questions in the Q&A window. Due to security concerns, we will not be taking spoken questions. All questions will be written questions, and the chat box has been disabled. If anyone would like to get in touch, please email saveindia@justiceforall.org. We will not be broadcasting this session, so please do let anyone who you know wanted to attend this session to be here right now. So get on your phones and send a quick text message. The reason, again, is for security concerns. We will be discussing strategy in this session as well, and therefore we believe that this should be remained a closed session for the leadership that is here. We are recording the event and will share Professor Stanton's and Imam Mujahid and Nadine Milienza's comments as soon as possible. So welcome back, welcome again from Justice for All. I'd like to just give a small, for those of you who may not know Justice for All, just a small reminder of who we are. Justice for All is a human rights organization, a faith-based human rights organization that has focused on anti-genocide work for several decades, starting with the Bosnia Task Force and then the Burma Task Force. Our other projects include Save Uyghur Campaign, the Kashmir Action Campaign. We also work on global Islamophobia, as well as Black justice advocates. We are gravely concerned about the deteriorating situation of minorities in India. Though India has long prided itself on being the world's largest democracy, today this is a secular democracy in severe decline. Our work at Justice for All focuses on genocide, and we want you to keep that in mind when you realize what we're bringing up and why we're bringing these things up. From some of our work we've noticed, and being out there in the community here and overseas, we noticed that there's a lot of denial of the situation on the ground in India right now. And that's why we thought it was imperative that we get this panel together and educate and inform our communities. As a background of what Justice for All has achieved in the past year, I just wanted to let you all know that through your calls, through over 100 government and UN meetings, over 40 memos and submissions, 12 coalitions, 150 TV shows, and 52,000 calls, we've been able to achieve some positive steps this year. Ambassador Rashad Hussain has been confirmed by the Senate as the Ambassador of International Religious Freedom. Justice for All has been advocating for this nomination. He is an advisor to our Burma Task Force, and this was our key ask of the Biden administration. The Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act passed the House and the Senate to become law, but Justice for All Save Uyghur Project has been campaigning for this bill for the past 2 years. Sanctions were announced. US and Canada announced sanctions against Chinese officials for serious human rights abuses, and the powerful work of coalition and allies has made this possible. We are helping to put an end to China's billion-dollar murder for organs industry as a coalition member with ETAC. We're closing the information gap on Uyghur genocide. Many in the US and abroad were simply unaware of the Uyghur genocide and are still skeptical due to geostrategic considerations. This is why we have devoted substantial resources to education, TV shows, webinars on topics such as Islam in East Turkestan, Uyghur women, organ harvesting, working in partnership with the medical community and the UN Commission on the Status of Women, as well as the Women's Caucus in Congress, to protect the protection of our Uyghur sisters, with a special focus on how the genocide was impacting our sisters. The Save Uyghur campaign interviewed several Uyghur camp survivors, including Gulbahar Jalilova, Kalbi Noor Siddiq and Zumrud Dawood. We have released detailed memos on this topic, and we've met over 35 Congress people in the Women's Caucus and held a major conference with global women's leaders. The Lost Uyghur Imams report, in collaboration with the Uyghur Human Rights Project, Save Uyghur, published reports about lost Uyghur religious scholars and imams in East Turkestan, and this report was highlighted by the BBC. We've been advocating on Wall Street. Our UN programs director, as well as myself, have briefed Wall Street investors to adopt anti-genocide policies. The Beijing Olympics boycotts, this is also another part of our efforts that we've been doing in coalition with Tibetan and Uyghur organizations. The Rohingya education report and campaign, which centers around the need for education for our Rohingya children. As you know, Burma Task Force has been raising awareness about the Rohingya genocide for the past 12 years. And this year, our concentration has been on Rohingya education. We've lobbied Congress to introduce the Burma Act and sanction members of the Burmese military. We've been meeting with the OIM, BRAC, RRC, and 40 Rohingya youth in camps to make sure we get information directly from the camps and are advocating for what they want. In response to pressure from Burmese democracy supporters and human rights groups, including Burma Task Force, the UN postponed recognition of the military government representation. And centering Rohingya voices, Burma Task Force has hired a Rohingya program associate who confronted the UN Security Council president. This was a monumentous and monumental moment in our work. We have also hired Sharifa Shakira, a Rohingya women's activist, to work directly with impacted community. And this is very, very important to us that we center Rohingya voices. The Facebook lawsuit in California, $150 billion class action lawsuit alleging that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, has failed to take appropriate measures to stop genocidal incitement against the Rohingya. A Burma Task Force's associate Sharifa Shakira is a plaintiff in this legal action. And she states, despite community complaints over 4 years, Facebook ignored the military promotion of anti-Rohingya hatred. For years, it was a main tool of genocide. And unfortunately, you will see today, Facebook is continuing this trend in India, where Yati Narasimhan, the Hindutva leader's speech, has been viewed more than 36 million times on Facebook. We're also fighting for Kashmiri prisoners. We've advocated on behalf of Shabir Shah, journalist Asad Sultan, Sheikh Asia Andrabi, Khurram Parvez, and we're very, very delighted to announce today that USCIRF has recognized Khurram Parvez as a victim of Indian oppression and is on the USCIRF's official victims list. We've also this year hired staff to work on our Prisoners of Haq project. I want this to round up with some good news through our coalition work. And using prior relationships through our Burma work, we have liaised with the Prime Minister's office to help enforce forced cremations in Sri Lanka through the formation of our Sri Lanka Task Force. And this year, we held side events at democracy summits and religious freedom ministerials. And there's a plethora of work that has been done on the Save India project. And to share with us more about that, I'd like to introduce to you our brother, Zahir Adil, who is the team lead for Save India from Fascism Project for Justice for All. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Zahir.
Thank you, Hina. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And a special thank you to Nadine Milienza and to Gregory Stanton for being our guest this afternoon. Salam, Shalom, Shanti. I begin with wishes of peace for all and for the guidance of the Almighty for the religious leaders in India, calling for the mass murder and genocide of Muslims. With guidance comes peace. So may the Almighty give them guidance. In the last few weeks, we witnessed the calls for a slow genocide of Muslims go mainstream. A religious conference, or a Dharam Sansads as it was called, has the major organizations representing Hindu monks and teachers and Because of that, it is no longer a fringe. They plan to hold more such events. Now, there are calls for cauliflower farming, which is a hideous reference to the Logain village massacre of Muslims who were buried, and cauliflower and cabbage plants were used to hide the evidence. These are sick people, and they need healing. They need guidance. At the event, the leaders declared their plan. They want to kill 2 million Muslims using the Burmese model for the Rohingya, which is kill some, then force 200 Muslims out of India or relegate them to a minimalist living condition. 200 million Muslims will not just pack up and leave. They announced a rupees 10 million reward for Hindu suicide bombers to achieve their goal. They called on Hindus to take weapons against Muslims, and to emphasize that, they raised the slogan, Shastrameva Jayate, which means weapons alone triumph. The slow genocide of Muslims has now gone mainstream. There are laws against inflammatory speech in India, but the RSS BJP regime of India has let many pass, even after there has been actual violence. Muslims, on the other hand, such as Munawwar Farooqi, get arrested for a joke that they may have had said if they were allowed to be free. So it's not a fair system anymore. It has been 2 years since the peaceful protests against the Citizens Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizens. Those two laws were a step in the Nazification of India, and they were rightly opposed by so many Hindu, Christian, Sikh, or Muslim. But the Nazification was progressing. Lynchings, beatings, forced chants of Jai Shri Ram, and the RSS BJP regime tacitly and silently supported all of these just through their inaction. February of 2020 saw a planned pogrom against the protesters and against Muslims, but it has accelerated since. Vilifying the victim using terms such as Corona Jihad, Land Jihad, Love Jihad, and so on and so forth. It's the Nazi playbook Indianized. Most of our Hindu cousins are not with this, of course, but it is rare that a silent majority comes out actively in support of the victim. In Gurugram, a rich suburb of Delhi, authorized Muslim prayer services were invaded by Hindutva elements, spreading cow dung and shouting down the Friday prayers, but the 70% good people stayed at home. We cannot rely on them to stop this unless they come out now against the Hindutwadis in full force. We love India, and that's why it's important to oppose the RSS elements. I have only goodwill towards my Hindu cousins. From Aligarh, I remember Sanjeev and Mukesh and Rajesh as friends. And in the United States, Nanda and Sridhar, a devout Brahmin, have been close friends. The RSS BJP regime has broken these bonds for so many, and it is to the detriment of all things Indian. We at Justice for All have been hard at work on India. We have filed 38 prisoner of conscience reports, and I am happy to report that we have about 10 of those accepted as victims of the Indian regime. We have submitted full evidence against 3 Indian extremists and filed for sanctions against them. We have released the Why India Deserves a CPC report. We filed evidence with different US law agencies about some groups. We've asked for a hearing of India in the US Congress. We have prepared civil society questions for the Indian ambassador to the United Nations. And we have had many connections with the UN Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights. Islamophobia in India report was submitted to the United Nations. Our upcoming The Nazification of India educational report will show one-to-one parallels on how the Nazi playbook is being replayed in India. And we have done many, many letters and memos on vilification of the victim on Tripura, on Sheikh Umar Gautam, on the Babri Masjid verdict, and many others. To my Hindu cousins, I will say this. We have fought and we have condemned extremists from our own faith. It's your turn. You need to fight yours. Before I end, I will remind you that we depend on you, Our work is possible because of your action, because of your support. Thank you. Back to you, Hina.
Thank you so much, Brother Zahir, and thank you for everything that you do way beyond your duty that you do for India. And so many of us who are connected and have family there, we appreciate everything that you put in. And as I do appreciate Nadine Milienza. So let me share a little bit about Nadine with you. Nadine has been a friend of Burma Task Force for a very long time. We appreciate her taking her personal time to go to the Rohingya camps and to visit with them and visit with our brothers and sisters in the camps and really learn from their struggles, and to go back in dangerous situations and go back to Burma and speak up for so many people across the Yazidis, across the world, Syrians, the Christians in Iraq who are being persecuted. And, this is a sister in faith, and I really, really appreciate and learn from her every day. As you all know, USERF is a government commission of the United States. It's a bipartisan commission, meaning the Republicans and the Democrats both have a say and support the commission. And unfortunately, our commissioners are being extremely disrespected by the Indian government. I mean, we sort of expected from the Chinese government when Nadine and others have recently been sanctioned by the Chinese government. But India is supposed to be our ally, is supposed to be a fellow democratic country. And for the USERF commissioners not to be able to visit India and to be demeaned and taunted on a daily basis on social media, in their newspapers, is something that is very, very troubling to us. Nadine is a noted speaker. She's a writer and a policy expert with more than 2 decades of experience as an advocate for working families and a champion of international religious freedom. She's a president of Patriot Voices, where she provides her expertise to shape the organization's special emphasis on public policies that support working families. Drawing on her extensive network and coalition building experiences, she has helped build unique coalitions on issues such as paid family leave, healthcare, tax reform, and international religious freedom. In May 2020, she was reappointed by the White House to the second 2-year term on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, serving as its vice chair in 2019, and currently she is the chair of the commission. Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you so much for the gracious introduction. I'm so appreciative of the brave work that Justice for All does in bringing together people to have these conversations that we shouldn't be afraid of having. And you see a lot of fear when we start talking about some of these that might be controversial, but that's the only way we're going to find a way forward. And so thank you for that and for putting this event together and for letting USERF be a part. You know, India has a beautiful history of pluralism that has been thriving for thousands of years. It has a constitution that established the nation as being secular, with Article 25 granting all individuals freedom of conscience, including the right to practice, profess, and propagate religion. But with the BJP leading the government since 2014, we've seen it erode the secular principles by aggressively advocating for a pure Hindu state, causing religious freedom conditions to worsen. During this past year, the government continued to promote and enforce Hindu nationalist policies impacting Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Dalits, Adivasis, and others, resulting in systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. USERF has once again recommended India be designated as a State Department by the State Department for a country of particular concern, or a CPC. So we continue to see mobs acting with impunity, targeting minorities, national governments and individual state governments passing discriminatory laws and policies that limit the lawful activities of religious minorities, and a violent crackdown on civil society and dissent. The combination is creating a dangerous environment for religious communities. In 2020, passing the Citizenship Amendment Act, or the CAA, was a major moment for the government of India. According to a recent report issued by the University of California, Berkeley, the CAA gave precedent to religion as a criteria for citizenship in India for the first time. Muslims were the only religious group excluded from equal treatment under the CAA. So the CAA provides fast track for Indian citizenship for non-Muslims from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan who live in India. This has empowered mobs sympathetic to Hindu nationalism to operate with impunity against Muslims, mosques, Muslim majority neighborhoods. And the CAA, in conjunction with the proposed National Register of Citizens, or the NRC, would require all residents to provide documentation of citizenship, could lead to statelessness, deportation, or long detention. The implementation of this in Assam gave us a chilling example. So in 2019, Assam implemented the NRC. It ended up excluding 1.9 million residents, leaving 700,000 Muslims at significant risk of being stripped of their identity. It's important to note that many of these Muslims had family in India for generations, had never lived anywhere else. Others had one or two family members excluded from the list. During our user hearing last year, we showed how India is weaponizing these citizenship laws against religious minorities. And we continue to see laws at the state and local level that encourage violence against religious minorities. 10 Indian states now have anti-conversion laws that prohibit religious conversion based on force, allurement, inducement, or fraud. Some are so broad that they can be interpreted as prohibiting any kind of conversion. These have been used as a basis for false accusations, harassment, and violence against non-Hindus, emboldening mobs to commit violence and disrupt worship services. And several anti-conversion laws increasingly target interfaith marriage as well. Because of the utter prohibition of unlawful conversion of religion ordinance that was passed in November of 2020, those found guilty of violating these laws could face 10 years in prison. And also we're seeing actions and rhetoric from government officials that is only adding fuel to this fire. In June of 2021, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh warned that the National Security Act, which is legislation allowing the government to detain a person to prevent him or her from acting in a manner that threatens the security of the state, could be invoked against those involved in religious conversion. In October 2021, Karnataka's government ordered a survey of churches and priests and authorized police to go door to door and do inspections to find Hindus who converted to Christianity. Religious minorities continue to face targeted violence and discrimination as they are perceived to threaten Hinduism. USERV has documented credible reports of threats and violence used. As reported in December by the New York Times and others, right-wing Hindu activists at a conference took an oath to harm Muslims if necessary to make India a Hindu-only nation, which is beyond troubling. And the Association of Protection Civil Rights, United Christian Forum, and United Against Hate in a joint report documented over 300 instances of violence against Christians in just the first 9 months of 2021. We are also concerned about the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, or the FCRA, amended in 2020, is being used to target NGOs, many that are faith-based. The government has suspended the funding of several Christian and Islamic organizations under this act, with accusations of alleged conversion activity. And on January 2nd, India moved to block foreign funds to Mother Teresa's Missionary of Charity. For 70 years, its NGO has fed the poor, run homes for abandoned children, clinics, and hospices to meet the needs of the Indian people. We're also seeing a closing for civil society in India. Throughout the last year, members of civil society, human rights advocates, and media who reported on religious freedom violations faced intimidation and harassment. Government officials used the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or the UAPA, and other statutes to detain advocates, journalists, lawyers, rights activists, academics, political leaders, religious minorities, and others critical of its policies. In July 2021, Father Stan Swami, an 84-year-old Jesuit priest and longtime human rights defender of the poor that Justice for All advocated for strongly, died in custody after contracting COVID-19. He was suffering from Parkinson's disease, but was still arrested in October 2020 under the UAPA for suspicion of ties to organizations accused of instigating violence. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, there was a disinformation campaign of hateful rhetoric that included government officials, often targeting religious minorities. Disinformation and intolerant content emboldened intimidation, harassment, and mob violence against Dalits, Muslims, Christians, and other indigenous and religious communities. In 2021, a highly contagious strain of COVID-19 swept through India, and Muslims were further curbed from participating in religious activities. In August 2021, authorities placed mourning restrictions on the Shia population during Muharram observances. And government continues to restrict the historic Jama Masjid in Srinagar from holding Friday prayers. By contrast, in April 2020, the government allowed the Hindu Kumbh Mela festival and pilgrimage. So government officials and non-state actors also continue to use social media and other forms of communication to harass and spread hatred and disinformation against minority communities. USCIRF has made some important recommendations to the U.S. government in addition that the State Department designated as a CPC. These include impose targeted sanctions on individuals and entities responsible for severe violations of religious freedom, develop a bilateral and multilateral agreement to advance human rights of all religious communities, promote religious tolerance and interfaith dialogue, condemn ongoing religious freedom violations, and support religious organizations and human rights groups being targeted for their advocacy of religious freedom. And for U.S. Congress, we recommend that they should continue to raise religious freedom concerns in U.S.-India bilateral relationship and highlight concerns through hearings, briefings, letters, and congressional delegations. So we stand with the Indian people who want their country to go back to its roots, to the pluralistic society that values religious freedom. So thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. And I know we have several people who have questions from USCIRF, of USCIRF, and we'll be coming back to that as soon as the event. We'll do a session of question and answers at the end, so I hope you'll stay around. Thank you so much. Now, as all of you may know, that there are 10 stages of genocide. And we've learned this from the very best people who have spent their lives studying this. Let me quickly go over some of those and then we'll invite Dr. Stanton to give his comments on where he believes India stands on these stages of genocide. There's classification, and this is where all cultures have categories to distinguish people from us and them by ethnicity, race, religion, or nationality. But the main, and this is an early stage of genocide, is to develop universal institutions that are that promote tolerance and understanding and promote classifications that transcend the divisions. But classification is also used as a stage of separating and dividing people up. And the second stage, there's another stage. The second stage is symbolization, where we give names or symbols to the classifications. We name people Jews or Gypsies or Sully or Bully, like you may have been hearing from India. Then there's discrimination. A dominant group uses laws, customs, and political power to deny the rights of other groups. Stage number 4 is dehumanization, when one group denies the humanity of the other group, when people are being referred to as muli or cauliflowers that need to be farmed and buried in fields so no one can ever know that they existed. Members of it are called animals, vermin, insects, or diseases. Dehumanization overcomes the normal human revulsion against murder. You start feeling like it's okay to kill these people because they're not human like we are. Then there's organization. Genocide is always organized, we learn, usually by the state, often using militia to provide deniability of state responsibility. Then there's polarization, where extremists drive the groups apart. Hate groups broadcast polarizing propaganda. Motivation for targeting a group are indoctrined through mass media. Laws that forbid intermarriage and social interaction. And then there's the seventh stage of preparation, where plans are made for genocidal killings. National or perpetrator group leaders plan the final solution. Stage number 8, and often these stages can be occurring simultaneously. They're not linear. Victims are identified and separated out because of their ethnic or religious identity. Death lists are drawn up. In state-sponsored genocide, members of victim groups may be forced to wear identifying symbols. And then there's the state of extermination, which begins and quickly becomes mass killing, legally called genocide. And the final stage is denial. which is the final stage that lasts throughout and always follows genocide. And I'd like to add what we're seeing right now in the Bosnia genocide is also another stage of celebration. And we're seeing that this very, very, along with the denial, there's also the celebration of that we did this to these people and we managed to wipe them out. So to ask this very, very important question, I'd like to invite Dr. Gregory Stanton to come up and speak to us and let us know what stage of genocide is India. Dr. Stanton is the president of Genocide Watch. He's a research professor in genocide studies and prevention at the Institute of Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason University, Arlington, Virginia. And from 2003 to 2009, he was the James Farmer Professor in Human Rights at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Dr. Stanton founded Genocide Watch in 1999 and was the founder and the director of Cambodian Genocide Project, and is the founder and chair of the International Alliance to End Genocide. And Justice for All is very, very pleased to be a part of this alliance. So welcome, Dr. Stanton.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be with you today and to discuss this really urgent problem that we now face in India. It's a problem that has been growing for many years, really. As you may know, all of you who are listening, the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was prior to that Chief Minister of Gujarat. And when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat in 2002, he oversaw a massive genocidal massacre of Muslims in Gujarat that killed at least 1,000 people, and yet did nothing. And in fact, at that very time, it became very clear that his base, if you will, his political base was the base that is held by the RSS, which is an extremist Hindu organization. It is the organization, in fact, that was the home of Godse, who was the person who assassinated Mahatma Gandhi. So this is an organization that has been filled with hate ever since it was founded. It is basically a neo-Nazi organization, and in fact admired Hitler. So what we have here is a person who comes out of an organization that itself is an extremist organization. The most palpable way in which this is expressed is the doctrine of Hindutva, which is the doctrine that India should not be a secular country. It should be a Hindu country, and that people who are not Hindus are really outsiders. They are foreigners. They are invaders. This, of course, completely ignores the fact that India has more Muslims than even Pakistan, 200 million Muslims in India. It is one of the largest Muslim countries in the world. And it also has, of course, a lot of other religious faiths, including Christianity. So this doctrine of Hindutva is directly contrary to the Constitution of India. It is directly contrary to the tradition that Mahatma Gandhi represented, that Nehru represented, in fact, that has been dominant in most of Indian history since India became a democracy at independence in 1947. What's happened, though, is that this democracy has been taken over by an extremist party. The BJP, which is Modi's party, is dominated by people who are advocates of Hindutva, that is, of Hindu dominance in India. And this is now becoming more and more evident as leaders of this movement, the Hindutva movement, are passing one law after another to dominate and to suppress other religious groups. The religious groups that have been most affected most recently have been Muslims and Christians, but there are other religious groups as well. The anti-conversion laws that are present in at least 10 Indian states, for example, make it a crime to convert from one religion to another. And of course, this is a direct violation of religious freedom. We would never put up with this kind of a law in the United States or any democracy or any place that values religious freedom. Of course, people should have the freedom to determine their own religious faith. And yet in India, if you convert from being, for example, a Hindu to a Muslim or vice versa, or to be from Hindu to being a Christian, you can actually be arrested for it. So what we have here is a diminution in the democratic tradition of India. Now that has played itself out in a couple of Indian states most directly. One place has been Assam, where a large number of Muslim immigrants who were fleeing the Bangladesh Civil War in 1971 came across the border into Assam, probably at least 3 million people, and settled in Assam. And the result was that people in Assam became resentful of them and began movements to see if there was a way to push them back into Bangladesh. Well, frankly, that was a way of saying, you are not us, you are other, you are foreigners in our country, we want to push you out. And so what happened was then India passed laws, citizenship laws, which mandated a census, especially in Assam, but the Hindutva people want to do it all over India, in Assam, to determine if you were truly an Indian. And in order to be a truly Indian person, you had to prove that you had papers that showed you and your family had already been in India before 1971. The very clear targets of this were the immigrants from Bangladesh. If you couldn't prove that you had those papers, and a lot of people, of course, can't come up even with papers, even if they've lived there for many, many, many generations. I mean, how many people keep lots of papers around in their houses? They lose them, and they have all kinds of ways in which they can be denied citizenship. The idea was to deny citizenship to these Muslim people. We should learn from this, because as Hannah has just pointed out, the very first stage of genocide is classification. If you can deny somebody their citizenship, you classify them as an other, as an outgroup, as a foreigner, as somebody who doesn't have the civil rights of the country that they are part of. Because of this classification, which was the whole objective of this census, then these people could be declared foreigners and then deported. So that is exactly what is underway in Assam. They've even built prisons to hold people who, can't prove they were Indian citizens between 1971. The other thing that the Modi government did is it took away the special status of Kashmir, which had been agreed to right after independence, and right in the Constitution, actually, in Articles 370 and 35A of the Constitution, in which Kashmir became a kind of an autonomous state in India that governed itself in many ways. They dissolved that status, and the objective has been essentially to crush any kind of a movement to resume autonomous status for Kashmir, also to crush, of course, attempts to carry out a referendum on Kashmir's status that was mandated, in fact, by a UN resolution, but has never been carried out. The result, in other words, has been, again, to oppress and suppress Muslims, who are the majority in Kashmir. Now we see it again, this time in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. These are areas where the extremists are especially strong. And as we saw in the conference in Hardwar in December, where Hindu priests actually called for the murder of Muslims, they said, and I'm quoting, "We must arm and we must be prepared to kill." Now, when we have that kind of warning, and that is what we call incitement to genocide. Incitement is a crime under the Genocide Convention. And when you have that kind of incitement, it is the preparation stage for genocide. Preparation is, as Hannah has already pointed out, what we consider to be the seventh stage. And after that comes persecution. And we've already seen some of the persecution, the massacres. We've seen discrimination also against Muslims and so forth. So these stages of genocide, which are not linear, as Hannah has pointed out, they occur simultaneously. Many of them are already present in India today. We should be watching out. We should be crying genocide emergency for India. And that is, in fact, what Genocide Watch has done for both Assam and for Kashmir, and we are about to do for Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, because we believe there is a real risk of massacres. What is, of course, extremely troubling here is that the Modi government has stood back, said nothing, and we'll be very happy to just watch it happen. That is exactly what Modi did in Gujarat 2002. It is what he will do again. So this massacre, this genocide, will likely not be even carried out by the Indian state. It will likely be carried out by mobs, just as the genocide was carried out during partition in 1947. So that is why Genocide Watch has declared a genocide emergency for India. We believe that India is at the persecution stage right now. That's the stage right before genocide.
Gregory Stanton.
What does he do?
Like a psychologist, sociologist, Genocide Watch.
Yes, thank you
I
so
don't know
much.
exactly. I think he wrote a book on the stages of genocide. Pretty well.
I'm getting a little bit of, I think someone's,
He's a professor.
Zainab, please mute yourself. Oh, sorry about that, Dr. Stanton. Please go ahead.
Oh, actually, I have finished.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this. But you know what we need to do now is we need a real action campaign. We've got to bring this to the attention of the Congress of the United States, just as we did, and Nadine was, one of the supporters of this, when we got Congress to declare unanimously that ISIS was committing genocide in Iraq and Syria. Prior to that, the US government was really standing back, and that resolution had a big effect, which finally passed in 2016. We moved the denial of that by the legal office in the State Department. And we moved away from that and got Secretary of State Kerry to actually declare this, that they were committing genocide. And it has had an impact. Not only did we defeat ISIS, but then we also have appropriated funds to resettle people who ISIS, has driven out of their homes. So that is the kind of action I would like to see on this crisis in India. Now, we will be up against all kinds of pressure. We have a lot of economic relations with India, and a lot of companies will lobby against this. So we are going to have to be well organized to make this happen.
Well, thank you so much for that. It's, as you know, all of us at Justice for All have been very, very troubled by what we've been seeing, and to have you so clearly, with all your experience and all your just background, be able to succinctly place it on a stage 8. I'm sorry. That's just, I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, but that just is something that we really, really need everybody to take a moment to sink in and to realize, to let go of the denial that we ourselves are in, particularly those who are living in India and who are relying on the 70% silent people who, their Hindu neighbors who have always supported them in the past, who are not speaking up today. And we hope that this message can be shared. And we look forward to the release of that alert and to get to work on making sure that our Congress speaks up, despite our very, very close relationship with the Indian government. At this point, I'd like to invite Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, who is the CEO and founder of Justice for All, to talk about a plan, an action plan, just like Dr. Stanton was mentioning, because this is not the time just to speak. It is a time to act. So, Imam Mujahid.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you, and thank you so much for all of the panelists. Nadine, I know it may be early morning for you. Nadine is at this moment on a mission in the Middle East, and she's up. So I truly appreciate that, what USERF has done and continues to do, despite extraordinary pushback. Professor Stanton, you have done a favor to the whole world by helping people understand what are these stages of genocide. And I welcome your thoughts that Congress must pass the resolution declaring such, but you also recognize what type of uphill battle which we have. India is hiding behind Gandhi, although the killers of Gandhi are roaming around India at this moment. Gandhi, yoga, and Taj Mahal, America must look beyond that if we are able to understand and save lives. India is a beautiful country and a beautiful culture, but India is at risk. That's why our campaign actually at Justice for All is called Save India from Fascism. And that is not favor to minorities, Muslims or Christians, or Sikhs or Dalits, but it's a favor to the whole country. It's the second largest country in the world. Its well-being of its democracy is good for all of us. So I recognize what Professor Stanton has said, that it is going to be difficult, but I truly appreciate you saying that you want to issue an emergency alert of genocide for India. I think this is extremely important, a welcoming step for your announcement. We have been concerned quite a bit, and we have been working. And the first time I came to realize what is happening, accelerating situation, we have been working through Burma Task Force on the Rohingya issue. And then came the editorial from New York Times on October 14th, 2015. And it pointed out, it was an editorial, it pointed out that the Hindutva extremists of RSS and these people are collaborating with the Burmese extremists who are committing a genocide right then, and with Sri Lankan extremists. So the collaboration of genociders brought us our attention to that, and we instituted Save India from Fascism. India definitely is important for the whole world, not just for its minorities. And America, we just held a democracy conference. Unfortunately, these points were not very clear. That the person representing India, its prime minister, is presiding in dismantling democracy there by changing the very nature of India's character. So we have been working with coalition, and we will continue to work. We have Faith Coalition, which we started for to Rohingya genocide, and it worked successfully in its declaration that it is a genocide by U.S. House Representative, led by Republicans at that time, passed the resolution. And later on, the Republican committee also announced that. But then the Faith Coalition has been helping us with the Uyghur issue, and many actions have been taken. I would like to give a call to all of you who are present there that you can send an email to Save India at Justice for All, and it will be available, that information, to you. And if in your city, and if you're in a state, you have contacts, multi-faith contacts, Faith India Coalition now will be working on Save India from Fascism. We're expanding also. Brother Zahir shared many things which we are doing currently, and I hope it will be available to you through chat box and our question and answer, where that document could be shared. We're expanding in a way that we have worked very closely with the European Union on the Uyghur issue. We developed good relationship with the British Parliament by writing memos and relationship on Uyghur issue. Now we'll be translating that relationship and leveraging for the cause of Indian minorities to stop slow genocide in India. Education is the first thing. And at the end of my presentation, I would request my colleague to share 3 things which are available now, what individuals can do. Those several hundred people who are attending, you have your networks, you have your reach, you have your contacts in churches, in synagogue, in Hindu temples, as well as mosque. So what can you do through your contact individually? There's a whole document of 2 pages, which will be shared at the end of this presentation with you. We also have a document what churches can do. It is American churches are serious people. They just don't talk like Muslims talk in solidarity with other people. A 20 billion or higher $1 billion American Christians share with Christian brothers and sisters around the country. And right on the Christmas day, India gave a Christmas gift to Christians in India. They banned the largest charity of Mother Teresa, which serves with 4,000 nuns to people nobody seems to care for in India. Now they cannot receive any charity from American churches. Do our churches know about that? And Christmas Eve, there were attacks. And one of the speech in that conference on December 17th to 19th, at one of the holiest place in India, declared there will be no more Christmas and there will be no more Eid in that state. They made a declaration, it is all recorded. And that evening, churches on the Christmas Eve were attacked, and some people were blocked from getting to the churches. Celebration in India. And I have been honored at Gandhi's Samadhi, and where Gandhi used to live in India, in Delhi, whenever he will visit Gandhi Ashram, it has a big pole or a minaret. All around you will find verses of Quran, verses of Bible, verses of Bhagavad Gita. That's where he used to worship. He wanted all people to be equal in there. But the people who killed Gandhi, RSS, BJP government, which is in power, doesn't want that. So what churches can do, the document is available. It is 3 pages, and it will be shared at the end of this presentation to any one of you. So each individual can take it, and you become the leader in your community. And if you have some people willing to work with you, join the Faith Coalition to stop genocide. The third item, since many of the people who are attending, by the way, hundreds of people, many of them are not Muslims, many of them are not Americans. This cause is cause of humanity, and all people need to be involved in that cause. But for Muslims, we have one document what masjids can do. Masjid are a very powerful institution in the Muslim community. Not all Muslims are connected with mosques, but mosques are connected with a whole lot of people. In interfaith, Muslims are number one. What your interfaith partners are doing? Wherever mosque is, around us are churches. Do churches know what is happening to Christians there? Can mosque and churches together take a delegation and talk to their congressperson and senators that the usurped chair who is present here has already asked the United States government? By the way, this is a bipartisan commission appointed by Trump administration, appointed by Biden administration, people from all sides working together. It came through act of the Congress. They have recommended that India should be declared a country of particular concern. Why State Department is not doing that? Because they are not hearing from us. That's the one reason. If they hear from our congressperson, senator, can your mosque and can church next to you together, you can go and talk to your senator and congressperson about it. Nadine had been leader in this area. For 2 years, they have been asking for sanctions on those people who are going around attacking the minorities. Why State Department and Treasury is not doing it? One reason, brothers and sisters, they are not listening they're not hearing from us. That's where your sheet is important, what mosque can do, what churches can do, what individual can do. No, we won't be able to get everything done overnight. RSS and PJP has taken their time. It was 20 years ago when they demolished the Babri Mosque, the historic 500-year-old mosque, and that's where they started building up. It was 20 years ago when they committed the genocidal massacre, because of which Professor Stanton mentioned, Modi couldn't enter America thanks to our laws for 10 years. That was the build-up, and they kept building it up. So they have taken years. So your effort is not going to be like pushing a button and something happening. It will require a lot of education, lot of teaching, taking America beyond the Gandhi and yoga and Taj Mahal to understand even Taj Mahal, that love story is being denied. That, okay, no, there was no love story behind that. Every Christian and Muslim property is being called that it is actually Hindu property. So here's my few other calls. We need 100 volunteers. You are right now, several hundred people are listening to this. No matter what country you are on, I know majority of you are right here in America. I'm looking for you to volunteer now. We're looking for 100 volunteers to give 5 hours a week for next 5 months. If you could do that, great. Otherwise, you can limit whatever hours you can go. And we have justiceforall.org/volunteer. Of course, there are many causes. You need to pick Save India cause there. So this is a call for 100 volunteers, give 5 hours a week for 5 months. Nadine need your support. Their call need to be backed up by people calling their congressperson and senators. If Hina Zubairi and Zahir have generated 52,000 calls last year for Uyghur cause and the Rohingya cause, we can generate 100,000 calls for this cause. Without that, it's not going to take next step. So this is one call. Second call I'm asking, I'm looking for 10 of you who are listening. God Almighty has said, saving one life is like saving a humanity. We're talking about 1.2 billion people here. Of course, half of them are minorities, which are at higher risk. But when genocide happens, it is not going to happen just like minorities only getting killed. somebody gonna take a and somebody gonna come attacking, they will take a stand for their family and their children. Other people gonna get killed. Innocents gonna get killed. It is going to be a major problem. So to save all of that, I'm looking for 10 of you to quit your job. Yes, it's not a joke. People who are working on it, they need time and they need smart people. If you're smart in a business, you're making money, take some time off or be full-time. And if you cannot do that, then you need to give money so we can have 10 people working to stop fascism from taking over India, which they have in many, many ways, but it can still be stopped. We must trust God along with trusting our effort. So this is what we're looking. If you cannot do that, also giving a call, a humble call to raise $1 million for Save India from Fascism campaign. There are Hindus for human rights. They are trying to organize, but money from Hindus are not going towards them. Monies from Hindus in America, unfortunately, going to those people who are strengthening fascism. All of you need to donate to Hindus for human rights. They're taking a risk of being attacked. I know a Hindu personally, a friend whose home in India was attacked because of what he is doing for the human rights. So there are brave people. Journalists are being attacked. You know, India, second largest country, out of 180 countries, Reporters Without Borders have rated them at 142nd level. Afghanistan, Mexico, and India is where they are saying the highest risk of life for the journalist. Journalists are taking a risk for you. So I'm calling for $1 million to be raised. Not right now, but when you volunteer, justiceforall.org/volunteer, commit that you are willing to raise this money and write it down. If you're willing to take a month off for this cause, take 2 months off, or you're willing to commit 5 hours for this particular cause. My friends, this is the beginning of a campaign. Many other organizations are working. We are supporting all those organizations. They're open to us all, but it needs to become a call of faith. So join the faith coalition individually and your organization for this particular cause. And I like to announce that Justice for All has joined the Alliance Against Genocide, which Dr. Gregory Stanton leads, and will be part of that. So networking, alliances, and coalition, that's the strategy we will take America forward in understanding the new India, which is heading towards genocide and stopping this slow genocide. Invite us for presentation in your community. If you are a church, you like an evangelical Christian, I have tons of evangelical Christian friends. We work with them. They are our brothers in faith. We believe in different ways, but they are surprised that I fast the day Jesus, peace be upon him, was born. We celebrate Jesus. Muslim cannot be a Muslim until they believe in Jesus and all of that. So in a very different way, our faith is different, but I can connect with the evangelical Christians. I can connect you with mainline churches who I work in coalition very regularly. One of the evangelical Christian leader who controls 200 churches across America is co-chair of the Faith Coalition. And one mainline church leader is the third co-chair of this particular coalition. So if you need a presentation for your church, for your mosque, for your university, Zoom or in person, we can provide that. Just send email to saveindia@justiceforall.org. We have almost done with the preparation of an exhibit on India and Indian minorities and Muslims in India. And we can help Christians develop one on Christians in India. And that exhibit will be available to those of the people who like to use for the educational purposes. So my friends, Thank you so much for joining. This is the time for question and answer, but I like to repeat just a summary of it. This genocidal policy started a while ago. It has reached the level that Professor Stanton calling at 8th level of genocide. And Hina had to control herself because she has more relatives there than she does in America. And I have to worry about my own relatives. You know, this thing is personal to us. This is not a theory. We have people whose life is at stake. Every day people are lynched. Those from America, and you have seen images are black being lynched by hanging by the tree. Right now, Muslims, Christians, and Dalit in India have photos of those type people hanging from the trees, except they are colored photo instead of black and white photos of the early days of lynching in America. This is happening right now. So we have 3 tools available. Brother Zahir or Sister Hina, please go ahead and share that with people, what churches can do, what mosques can do, what individual can do. We have a call for volunteers. Please send out the URL, justiceforall.org/volunteer. We have a lot of volunteers, Uyghur issue, Rohingya issues. Some of them help in this area, Sri Lanka task force, but we need specific volunteers working on this particular issue as well. Thank you so much. Back to you, Sister Hina.
Thank you all so much. And going to wrap it up now over here. Please, again, any questions, anything, we're at Save India, at Justice for All, and info@genocidewatch.org. Thank you so much to all of you, and we will win. We will.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nadine.